I need it. Come and stay the night, whatever you like. I can hear around, face down, put it down. I like to show out. Show out. I like it when you show out. Show out. For the camera, baby, I be winning. Down for whatever, baby. Come and get it. Baby, I'm the one. Come and have some fun. I could be your body, baby. Let's go on a run, cause I can give it how you need it. Say it in the fun. We can hit the island and be wet under the sun. I got the music in the train. Tell me what you think. I know I'm about it, baby. You my missing link, baby. When the night is over, you know I don't wanna leave. Just wrap me in your arms and reassure me I'm the prince, baby. I don't wanna go right now. I just wanna put you on a show right now. Wind it up and move my body slow right now. Show me, baby, how far you can go right now. Baby, turn the lights on, I just wanna see it. And we can go out however you want it, cause I need it. Come and stay the night, whatever you like. I can turn around, face down, put it down. I like to show out. Show out. I like it when you show out. Show out. Hey baby, you my ecstasy. You know how I'm feeling when you next. Light it up and take it to the chest. Ooh, baby, you got a hex on me. Baby, you got me high right now. Getting something you is on my mind right now. You the money, baby, you my grind right now. Picking in the garden, you my mind right now. Oh, feel my body right, you know it. Got it, control it. Let grown man on me and now you want it. Baby, turn the lights on, I just wanna see it. And we can go out however you want it, cause I need it. Come and stay the night, whatever you like. I can do it around, face down, put it down. I like to show out. Show out. I like it when you show out. Show out.
Happy Easter, everybody. I know it's kind of late, past my bedtime for real. But I just want to get into this debate about is Gucci Mane a snitch? I don't understand that. How can a man that's in a recording studio got a gun put in his head be a snitch? As a matter of fact, it was eight different people that came in. Big 30. It just don't matter to me. It just don't make sense that we in the black culture will go on a tangent about this man being a snitch and he got robbed. He got robbed. He had a gun put in his head by Pooh Shiesty just to change a contract. This ain't old school. You don't perform business like that. Business is sit down at the table and pen and paper, are used and signed. But it's crazy to me that we in the black culture will say that this man is a snitch. I'm gonna tell you who the real snitch is. Pooh Shiesty daddy. He did 2 days on a homicide. 2 days. I'm gonna get into that later. But right now, for those of you that don't know what really happened, I'm gonna let you hear the charges that these folks got that robbed Gucci Mane, aka Goo Wop. Uh-oh, hold on. That's not it. Where is it at? Wait a minute. Here we go. Because it don't make sense to nobody. Oh, that's it right there.
The Northern District of Texas, thank you for coming. This week, 9 individuals, including well-known musical artists, kidnapped and robbed at gunpoint numerous victims at a music studio in Dallas, Texas. 8 of the 9 were arrested yesterday in Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville. These individuals who are charged and arrested include Lontrell Williams Jr., also known as Pooh Shiesty, Lontrell Williams Sr., Rodney Wright Jr., also known as Big 30,
his daddy,
Kadarius Waters, Demarion Gibson, DeMarcus Glover, Corday Johnson, Darian McDaniel, and Terrence Rogers has not been arrested yet, but will be soon. The complaint alleges that on January 10th of this year, 3 music industry professionals traveled to Dallas for a scheduled business meeting. Lontrell Williams Jr. arranged this meeting purportedly to discuss the terms of his recording contract with one of the victims. As alleged, once these 3 men were inside the recording studio, Williams Jr. and 8 co-conspirators, several of whom traveled from Memphis, Tennessee, executed a coordinated armed takeover. As alleged, Williams Jr. produced an AK-style pistol and forced one of the victims to sign a release from the recording contract at gunpoint. The remaining conspirators displayed firearms and robbed the other victims of Rolex watches, jewelry, cash, and other high-value items. One of the victims was actually choked by one of the defendants to the point of near unconsciousness. Defendant Wright barricaded the studio door with his body to prevent the victims from escaping. The ringleader of the conspiracy, Lontrell Williams Jr., was on home confinement at the time of the offense, as alleged, for a prior firearms conspiracy charge and conviction out of the Southern District of Florida. Towards the end of his prison sentence, he had been granted.
Now watch this. All this was caught on videotape. They caught him with one person left in the car with all the guns. They caught the video caught them bringing a duffel bag of guns in the studio after everybody else was in there. One guy. But this all on camera. And we out here saying this man a snitch, but I'm gonna keep it going.
In detention. His father, Lontrell Williams Sr., is alleged to have helped plan and execute the federal kidnapping as charged in the complaint. And as described further in the complaint, within hours of leaving the Dallas studio, a number of the defendants were on social media displaying some of the items that appeared to be the jewelry that had been robbed from the victims.
They didn't rob somebody and put it on Facebook.
Come on now. Evidence, just some, establishing the defendants' roles in the federal offense. This is as follows. Electronic monitoring data placing Williams Jr. at the offense location.
Pooh Shiesty was on house arrest,
which would put him in violation of his home detention conditions. Cell phone records and license plate reader data corroborating the coordinated travel of multiple defendants from Memphis, Tennessee to Dallas. Rental car records confirming Williams Sr. rented a vehicle that was used by the group. Surveillance footage from the offense location, a nearby office supply store, and a hotel where several of the defendants stayed following the offense. Fingerprint evidence as well that was recovered from the crime scene, matching at least 2 of the defendants. social media posts by defendants displaying what appears to be stolen property just in the days following the offense, Greyhound bus records confirming the travel of multiple defendants from Dallas to Memphis the day after the offense, in this case, came to Dallas to conduct legitimate business, and they were met with firearms and violence as alleged in the charging document. This case should serve as a warning to others who believe that using violence and intimidation tactics to rob others in our community is a viable way to conduct business. I'm here to say that it is not, and that if you choose to do this, we will, together with our law enforcement partners here and the other ones in the Northern District of Texas, will bring you swiftly to justice. I want to thank the FBI Dallas Violent Crimes Task Force, the FBI's Memphis Resident Agency and Nashville Field Office, the Memphis Safe Task Force, the Dallas Police Department, United States Attorney for the Western District of Tennessee, Michael Dunavit, and AUSA Greg Wagner, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Texas, my dear friend and colleague Jay Combs, and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Tennessee, including my colleague Braden Busek, for their outstanding contributions in this multi-jurisdictional investigation and prosecution. I'd also like to highlight the extraordinary work. None of this happens without the extraordinary work of our AUSAs in this office, and I'm here to say we have the best AUSAs in the entire country. That includes AUSAs Robert Weathers, Claire Demers, and my violent crime chief, Jeremy Fugate. This case really underscores the importance of standing up for crime victims, no matter who they are or where they come from, and the incredible collaborative, investigative partnerships that we have, not only in the Northern District of Texas, but across the country, and we are all working together to make our country safer. So thank you for being here today, and I'll answer some questions after my colleague here speaks, but now I'm going to turn it over to him, and this is Jeremy Wright, who's the deputy.
Now, you heard the whole indictment. But Pooh Shiesty and his crew came to rob Gucci Mane. Now I'll say this. Call it a snitch. Or you can call it whatever you want to call it. You got a gun pointed to your head. 3 other security, real police, off-duty officers were assaulted, robbed. And us blacks think we need to handle this in the street. I tell you what, Gucci, Guwap, you handle this without shooting a bullet. Because that's the only thing we're going to lead to, shooting bullets. And I'll say this, to be honest with you. Pooh Shiesty had his dad with him? His dad is a snitch. His dad is a snitch. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. So we supposed to think it's cool for 8 people to run up on Gucci, in which they thought he was gonna be alone, but he had 3 security guards. Come in there like they want to do business and come in with a lot of guns. Put guns to his head and make him sign a contract releasing Pooh Shiesty. Now, if we know anything about Gucci, we know he got a great wife. And the reason I say that, because if this was yesterday, when I say that, I mean years ago, before his wife got him on them meds, Gucci would have crashed out. Y'all know this. Gucci would have crashed way out on this situation. But he killed 8 people without pulling a gun. I don't know if I'm just be honest about it. I don't think Gucci said nothing to the law at all. There's 3 more people in there. And if you look at the videos, it wasn't none of Gucci jewelry that they stole. It was Rolexes and rings and, and chains. But none of them was Gucci chains. So I don't know who actually told, but 9 times out of 10, I put my money. Gucci ain't said nothing. But I'm gonna tell you something. Now, this indictment on Pooh Shiesty Daddy. This what he did. See, he a snitch and he was a informant before he even made this stick up move right here with his son. And y'all here in one side, y'all here in this side. Let's hear facts. Let's hear facts. But I tell you what, if I was robbed, I tell the police who robbed me, they let me live. Shit, I'm coming telling on them. Why not? But he didn't. I don't believe he did. Now, this is the information on Pooh Shiesty Daddy, which was a rapper back in the day. Watch this.
To plead guilty to multiple counts involving federal drug conspiracy laws. Those are serious charges that typically carry heavy federal prison sentences. Because his homie went to trial. Pooh Shiesty was posting a lot of big scar in his story, reminiscing. Some say now, looking back, may have been sending clues. Now, another person people are pointing out before we get into this federal complaint once again is Pooh Shiesty's dad, Lontrell Williams Sr. Now, we're not going to go over the situation that happened in 2004 with the DJ because we talked about it in the first video. I'll leave the link in the bio, like I said once again. But we are going to go over his plea agreement. In that case,
y'all,
he only served
if y'all want to see this kind of stuff, go to YouTube and go to The Family. The Family. You get all this kind of stuff. And they be right on it. They have paperwork.
Now, during this time, Pooh Shiesty's dad did get arrested. Because his homie went to trial, he wasn't placed there. They couldn't charge him with the murder. They did charge him with the drugs that were seized at the time of his arrest. And during that time, even though it wasn't murder, he still agreed to be an informant for the feds. In fact, before we move forward with the rest of this story, we got to slow down and really break down something that most people skim over when they look at federal paperwork. Because buried inside a plea agreement is something that changes the entire conversation, and that's a potential 5K1 motion. Now, if you've ever dealt with the federal system, a 5K1 might just look like another number in a document. But in federal world, that number means everything. Let me break it down. First off, the defendant in this case, Lontrell Williams, agreed to plead guilty to multiple counts involving federal drug conspiracy laws. Those are serious charges that typically carry heavy federal prison sentences. We're talking about charges that can easily land 10, 20 years, sometimes even life, depending on the circumstances. But right after the plea selection, the agreement introduced something very important. It says the government may recommend a reduction in his sentence under United States Sentencing Guidelines 5K1. What does that mean? In simple terms, a 5K1 is a cooperation deal. It means that the defendant has agreed to provide substantial assistance to the federal government. And that assistance usually involves helping prosecutors build a case against other individuals. Now, that help can come from several forms. Sometimes it means providing detailed information about drug operations, suppliers, or co-conspirators. Sometimes it means helping investigators understand how a criminal organization operates, who is involved, where the drugs are coming from, and where the money is going. Other times it means actually testifying in court or in front of a grand jury against other people involved in a conspiracy. And in some situations, even help investigators
Pooh Shiesty Daddy was a whole snitch.
Identifying other suspects or confirming evidence investigators already have. But here's the key part most people miss. The plea agreement makes it clear that none of this guarantees a sentence reduction. The document literally says the decision is solely within the discretion of the government. In other words, prosecutors are the ones who decide whether the cooperation was valuable enough to be rewarded. And if they believe the defendant provided real help, Hope that actually led something that leads to investigations or prosecutions. Then they can file a motion asking the judge to reduce the sentence. That's what a 5K1 is. And looking back, he got 4 years of supervised release, and that was it. So apparently, they felt his information was enough to get a reduced sentence. And the feds, that's what they call black and white, proving if a person is an informant or not. And this is what we can call, quote unquote, being a snitch if you living by it. So let's continue with the story. Fast forward to the first week of April of 2026. Senior had a bond hearing for the federal pickup alongside his son and other 8 alleged CG members. Ushashi got one on the 8th. I keep you guys updated on that. But now at this point, people want to know. We got all that squared away. What about Gucci Mane? Now let's go over this criminal complaint in its entirety. I waited some time before dropping in the morning to see if the feds would actually drop the indictment. I'm sure Pushashi didn't ever know his father was a federal informant, which is crazy because hours before the robbery with Gucci Mane, he allegedly went to Instagram and talked about his paperwork spoke on standing on business on not being an informant, which would make sense. Some would say that's why he was allowed by his dad to do that to someone help his son become a millionaire, despite how we feel about his contract. It was an indictment, so we got indicted twice, nigga, so they smacked us with more charges, nigga, thinking that shit would break us or make us, nigga, conspiracy to possess firearms in front of the drug trafficking, violent crimes, nigga, 3 other solid niggas you will ever see, nigga, name on a piece of paperwork, nigga, bankroll, D-rolls, nigga, these niggas solid, nigga.
That Pushashi dad.
Solid, nigga. We kept the G, we traumatized about this shit, my nigga. For real, nigga, I really went through it, nigga. You nigga better watch our mouth when y'all say a nigga name, cause I was facing 20 plus or 20 plus another 20 plus life, nigga. Never told it, never folded, nigga. All my shit add up, nigga. Yeah, nigga, every page add up. You see 1 through 10 on anything. Stop playing with a nigga name, nigga, made nigga for real. You niggas don't know the half of this shit or what's really going on, nigga. Yeah, my paperwork 4,000 pages long. I go all day with this shit. You niggas don't know what really.
He got 4,000 pages on his case.
Now looking back at the situation that took place on January 10th, 2026, as mentioned, just weeks after FDO is charting number 1. It seemed like before, Pushashi and Gucci Mane, even though they didn't come out publicly, wasn't on no terms. But you had damn near 2 feds in it. One was a federal informant in Pushashi dad, and Gucci Mane security, who's even an ex-officer or was an off-duty officer at the time of this incident. Now, fam, with this complaint, we're not going to paraphrase. We're going to have to read in this entirety because it tells us what the eyewitness is. It also told us who the initial conversation, what happened. But I want to point out something. Now, according to these blogs, these people not only stole Gucci Mane one of his wedding rings or bands, one of Gucci Mane's watch, or one of Gucci Mane pendants. The Gucci Mane went on Big Facts a couple months ago before Pushashi came home and was excited and talked about how he don't come out with at least an M on.
Listen, everything I buy be $1 million now.
Right.
The watch gonna be $1 million, the chain got to be $1 million, the rings got to be $1 million. If I would bring my other rings on here, y'all couldn't even see. Yeah. I couldn't even see.
None of these pieces looks like Gucci Mane pieces. I find my stand correct. It was damn near 3 officers in there, at least 2 technically. They say at around 1 p.m. on January 10, 2002.
Now that's why I say I don't think Gucci Mane told. Well, none of the pieces that were showed was Gucci Mane pieces. He got the white gold with the diamonds, the platinum with the diamonds. They were showing gold Rolexes and change. Let's go.
6, the victims flew into Dallas, Texas, alongside RD's head of security, hereinafter referred to as CW, and other security officers, hereinafter referred to as TD, for a scheduled business meeting between RD and suspected Williams Jr., who we all now assume RD means Roger Davis, Gucci Mane, and Pushashi for Williams Jr. They say Pushashi wanted to talk to Gucci Mane or Roger Davis or RD about his contract and wished to be released. They said around 1:45, CW and TD, the 2 officers and the victims, arrived at the scheduled meet location, a music recording studio located within a larger office building. When CW and TD and the victims entered the office building, they realized the recording studio, owned by an individual hereinafter referred to as JN, was closed. So when they got there, they realized the studio was closed. And they talked to JN, who confirmed it. While they waited for the studio to open, the 5 went to a liquor store and purchased liquor in plastic red solo cups before returning to the studio. Williams Jr. father, Williams Sr., called JN multiple times on the day of the meeting, which was the owner of the studio. At around 2:53, J.N. answered the phone and learned that Williams Sr. was attempting to book the recording studio that afternoon for Williams Jr. and R.D. to record music. At around 3:15 p.m., J.N. opened the music studio for R.D., M.M., BP, CW, and TD. So, according to Pooh Shiesty's
y'all like and share, like and share.
They went there to try to do music, assuming it could have went down outside the studio as well. Investigators later collected and reviewed surveillance video captured at another business located at the same office building on the same floor as the recording studio, which shows Williams Sr. outside the office building. At around 3:27 p.m. on January 10, 2026, it appears that he was speaking to someone on his cell phone before entering the building. At 3:28, at around 3:39, an employee of the studio arrived to assist with production. When the employee arrived, Williams Jr. and Williams Sr. were standing at the back door of the office building, engaged in what appears to be an argument over the phone. At around 3:43, Williams Jr. and Sr., Wright, Johnson, Waiters, Roger, Gibson, Glover, and McDaniel entered the east side of the office building. The target suspects walked through the lobby area of the office building before going inside the studio. One individual with a dreadlock hairstyle, later identified as Gibson, can be seen on video exiting the building and shortly thereafter returning with a bag slung over his shoulder. Wright, also known as hip-hop artist Big 30. The 9 individuals entered the studio control room. Were inside. Victims were watching a football game. CW was positioned in the studio lobby, while TD remained in the vehicle they arrived in. Depicted below are photographs of the studio lobby. The police claimed the victims overheard Williams Jr. talking on a cell phone, potentially with a probation officer, stating that his caseworker had given him permission to be out for rec time. So Pooh Shiesty knew. His probation officer already knew where he was at. From what the victims could hear, Williams Jr. was informed that that wasn't the case and that he needed to return immediately. Williams Jr. agreed. Williams Jr. was wearing an ankle monitor, leading the victims to believe that Williams Jr. was on house arrest. R.D. told Williams Jr. they could reschedule the studio session, but Williams Jr. requested to speak with R.D. privately in the attached recording room. R.D. agreed and entered the recording room with Williams Jr., Williams Sr., and Wright. Meantime, MMBP remained in the control room with the 6 other individuals and continued to watch the football game. BP offered to share the liquor they purchased with the targeted suspects, and at least 2 accepted, grabbing red cups and making a drink, assuming they all was cool and coerced fine. Inside the control room, Williams Jr. produced purported contract terminations or release papers from a bag and told R.D. to sign them. When R.D. declined, Williams Jr. became agitated. And the pair started
R.D. is Gucci Man. R.D. is Gucci Man. Gucci Mane
inside the recording studio initially believed R.D. and Williams to be discussing business, but as M.M. saw the conversation intensify, he texted CW, who was still in the music studio's lobby. As the argument inside the recording room ensued, Williams Jr. instructed Wright to get the bag. Wright complied, leaving the recording room before returning with the bag, which is Big 30. Williams Jr. then pulled what appeared to be a black AK-style pistol from the bag and pointed it at R.D., demanding again that R.D. sign the contractual release paperwork. R.D. complied, signed the paperwork for Williams Jr., while Williams Sr. and Wright stood by R.D. R.D. couldn't leave the room. But here's how police got that evidence. They claim Big 30 pulled out a cell phone and recorded R.D. signing the paperwork while being
Big 30 got them all jammed up.
Pooh Shiesty from their contract. After the release was signed, Williams Jr. took R.D. wedding ring, watch, earrings, and cash. According to that recording, after R.D. signed the contractual release paperwork, Williams Jr. provided the paperwork to Williams Sr. and asked if the paperwork was good. Williams Sr. advised that the paperwork needed to be dated, so Williams Jr. then forced R.D. to add the date next to his name. As R.D., Williams Jr., Williams Sr., and Wright exited the recording studio, the remaining subjects, Waters, Rogers, Johnson, Glover, McDaniel, and Gibson, produced handguns or AK-style pistols and began demanding property from BP and MM. BP was pushed into the couch in the control room, while the individual known as BP as CMO, Dan Fu, and Potter Williams Jr. and crew, later identified as Roger, searched his pockets and stole his wallet. BP's chain and necklace, bearing their moniker 1017, were stolen from the neck, and another subject he knew as Glizzy 375, later identified as McDaniel during a robbery. McDaniel repeatedly threatened to shoot BP for moving, but Williams Jr. instructed McDaniel not to. BP further identified an individual he knew as Baby Slime 375, later identified as Johnson, as being involved in the kidnapping and robbery. and that during the control room robberies, Johnson possessed a firearm and held BP and others at gunpoint. Both MM and BP identified an individual they knew as KD, later identified as Waters, also being involved in the kidnapping and robbery, possessing a firearm and holding him at gunpoint. MM and BP identified them. MM was choked from behind to the point of nearly losing consciousness during the kidnapping and robbery, resulting in scratches on his neck and wrist below. MM was robbed from his Rolex watch, a Louis Vuitton bag containing multiple other high-dollar watches, Apple AirPod headphones, and his wallet at gunpoint. MM confirmed the Louis Vuitton bag, AirPods, and wallet each had Apple AirTags on them, a location tracking device. As the altercation inside the control room ensued, Wright walked over to the studio door to the lobby, closed it, and blocked it with his body, preventing the victims from leaving. CWNTD, the victim's security guard, watched Wright barricade the door and attempt to force their way into the control room, but were prevented from entering. With handguns drawn by CWNTD, managed to particularly open the door, but recognized that they were outnumbered. They said RD was pushed into the couch in the control room, causing the victims to believe they were going to be executed. Williams Jr. placed the barrel of the firearm to the back of BP's head and ordered him and RD to leave the control room and the studio through the west entrance of the office building. RD then instructed CWNTD to escort them to their vehicle. As the victims left, MM turned to Williams Jr. and asked him if they were really taking his watches. Based on later recovered surveillance footage, the targeted suspects left the studio and the office building through the east entrance at around 4:48 p.m. Exterior surveillance video recovered from a neighborhood building showed a white Buick Enclave and a black Dodge Charger Hellcat and a black Dodge Ram within distant road affixed to the bed of the truck traveling northbound shortly after the kidnapping and robbery. According to law enforcement database, Wright's father, also known as Rodney Wright, owns a 2020 Dodge Charger Hellcat bearing Tennessee license plates, which was shown on camera at around 2:18 in Dallas-Fort Worth. So it's clear as day. The information that was given thus far was from the officers who was with Gucci, who saw everything from outside the room. I'm a parent because it was glass doors or glass windows or glass walls, but couldn't get in because guns was drawn on them. Now apparently Big 30 and the homies he was staying with stayed at a Comfort Inn. They ended up stealing a black Dodge Charger Hellcat from that Comfort Inn on January 11, 2026. In return, they got all their surveillance footage in and outside that hotel. And that's what you see. They ain't come in there. They know about the alleged robbery based on what the police saying they saw and on Big 30 recording. But when it came to identifying the target suspects, they say MMBP and RD all personally knew Williams Jr. by both his legal name and the name under which he performs Pushish. Tagged his Instagram account. They say JRMM and RD described Williams Jr. as wearing a black Nike brand shiesty mask, black hoodie shirt, and black pants during the offense. An online search of Williams Jr. matched the individual depicted throughout Pushish. Here's that photo. They identified Pushish during the offense. The victims identified senior Instagram account Mob Times, Glow, MMBP, and RD all identified Wright as a well-known hip-hop artist known as Big 30. MM and RD identify his Instagram account as CEO Big 30, which is verified by Instagram. MM and BP identified KD. BP identified Dan Food. MM identified Glover, who had this Rolex and this 1017 chain. By the way, Rogers was just arrested. He was the one with this Rolex. BP identified Baby Slime. I'm saying you knew Pushish and Big 30 after it was forced to contract. We can all just assume that was Reggie Davis. That's one thing. But telling the police they robbed you is another. Because police told us at the very end, on page 30 of 32 pages, on who identified Latrell Williams Jr. When they were speaking on him, they spoke on RD in third person. They said eyewitness accounts state that Williams Jr. brought RD into a recording studio and demanded that RD sign the release contract at gunpoint before taking RD's wedding ring, watch, earrings, and cash. Eyewitness accounts also placed Williams Jr. in the room when the additional kidnappings and robberies of MM and BP occurred. Cell phone records, electronic locations, monitoring, and surveillance footage placed Williams Jr. at the offense location. Electronic location monitoring data also places Williams Jr. at a Staples location with his father, believed to be printing the termination contract prior to arriving at the offense location. Eyewitness accounts and state when it came to senior, they saw him in the studio when the offenses occurred.
Williams Sr. assisted Williams Jr. in producer RD's signature on a purported contract release. Surveillance footage from the day of the office shows Williams Sr. entering the building, unmasked, and later exiting the building carrying a backpack, which he believed he did not enter. Surveillance footage and eyewitness accounts place Williams Sr. at the offense location following the offense wearing similar clothing to what the suspects in the kidnapping and robbery appeared to be wearing. No other information about the jury type, the video released, or exactly what was took from Gucci Mane. Only what the feds could recover. Guess y'all take that from there. Since then, Big 30 attorney has spoken and said the following.
He's been making music for a number of years. He and Pooh Shiesty kind of came up in the music game together, and they were sort of like, they're very close, and they made, some magical music.
On Wednesday, FBI agents raided Williams' Cordova home. His father, of the same name, is also a suspect. Investigators tracked the group using cell data, surveillance, rental records, and bus tickets. 8 of the 9 suspects have now been arrested in a case that has racked up lots of attention.
I just hope that people will wait to pass judgment on Rodney and these other individuals until all the facts come out.
And if convicted, all 9 defendants could face life in prison. There is a scheduled detention hearing for Wright, or Big 30, tomorrow at 2 p.m. before his case is moved to Texas. In the studio, I'm Lauren Turman.
He doesn't.
Now y'all tell me, Gucci Mane snitched? No, he ain't snitched. The mother police in there that snitched on him. But you know what? Pooh Shiesty just got out of prison. Time he got out, dropped a nugget that was chart topping, making money like I don't know what. Then he gonna do this. We are our biggest enemy ourselves. Blacks, we are our own biggest enemy. And I say this, and I'm gonna just say this, and I'm gonna be closing. Gucci won. Gucci finna get all the money from Pooh Shiesty. Big 30 wasn't with him on that label. I think he was with I forgot who he was with. He was somebody from that area though. But Gucci still finna eat while he locked up for the rest of his life. That's all I got for tonight.